Offset, formerly of Migos, one of the most recognizable names in hip-hop, shot outside the Seminole Hard Rock Casino in Hollywood, Florida on the night of April 6, 2026. And the internet found out in real time because people with phones were already rolling. Now it turns out the shooting may have had nothing to do with random violence, and everything to do with $890,000 in gambling losses, a casino full of people he owed money to, and a reputation in the streets that had been unraveling long before anyone pulled a trigger. Here's how it got there. A man shot at one of the most surveilled casinos in the country. Nearly $1 million in gambling losses on a single trip. Homies he allegedly borrowed money from and ran off on. And a name already being attached to the trigger, with people claiming it is all on camera. This is the story of how a gambling addiction, a mountain of street debt, and one very bad night at the Hard Rock turned into the most viral shooting in hip-hop in years. Let's get into it. They got him. The night the Hard Rock Casino became a crime scene. The footage was already everywhere before most people even woke up. Camera phones, bystander clips, casino exterior angles, all of it flooding X, Instagram, and TikTok simultaneously, showing rapper Offset, former member of the Grammy-nominated Atlanta rap trio Migos, lying on the ground outside one of the most iconic entertainment venues in South Florida, with a police officer physically on top of him and another individual being dragged away from the scene. And this was not a rumor. This was not some early April internet hoax. This was not a bit. This was raw, unfiltered, absolutely chaotic footage spreading across every platform at full speed. And the moment people press play, the internet could not look away. Welcome back. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now because this is the channel where we do not wait for the press release. We break it down frame by frame, source by source, and we give you everything. And today, everything is exactly what we have for you. Because this story, it goes so much deeper than a shooting. This story has been building for a long time. Long before the gunshot, long before the ambulance, long before the casino floor even knew what had happened. But let us start at the beginning. Let us start with what the world saw first. It was Monday evening, April 6th, 2026. The Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida, which sits just outside of Miami, was doing what it always does on a weekday evening, humming with activity, packed with guests, music pumping, chips on the tables, cocktails flowing. The valet area outside, busy as ever with cars pulling in and out. And then, after 7 o'clock in the evening, something happened in that valet area that shattered the entire mood of the night. An altercation, a confrontation, and then shots. That clip right there, that is the sound of the night breaking open. That is somebody's phone capturing the exact second that the Hard Rock went from playground to crime scene. And that clip was just the beginning of what was about to become one of the most viral nights in hip-hop history in recent memory. Because within minutes, not hours, minutes, footage of a man lying on the ground near the casino entrance being attended to by law enforcement began circulating. And the man on that ground was confirmed to be Kiari Kendrell Cephas, the rapper the world knows as Offset. Now, Offset's spokesperson moved quickly to get ahead of the chaos. They confirmed that yes, the rapper had indeed been shot, but they were also careful to add that he was stable, that he was being closely monitored, that this was not life-threatening, and at Memorial Regional Hospital in Hollywood, Florida, that appeared to be the case. But stable or not, the scene outside that casino was anything but calm. Look at that footage. Look at the chaos of it. People wandering around in disbelief. Officers on scene moving fast. 2 individuals were detained at the scene, according to the Seminole Police Department. 2, not 1. Which tells you immediately that whatever went down out there, it was not a random accident. It was not a stray bullet from somewhere out in the night. There was a confrontation. There was a sequence of events that led to a man getting shot outside one of the most surveilled, most security-heavy entertainment venues in the entire state of Florida. Think about that for a second. This did not happen on a dark street corner. This did not happen in some parking lot with no witnesses. This happened at the valet area of the Hard Rock Casino. A place with cameras on every inch of its property, security personnel throughout, and hundreds of witnesses on any given night. CBS News was live on the scene, giving the full picture of what law enforcement was confirming. And here is what CBS confirmed from police. The Seminole Police Department stated that the situation was contained quickly, that there was no ongoing threat to the public, and that casino operations continued normally following the incident. Normally. Can you imagine being a guest inside that casino, playing blackjack, sipping on something cold, completely unaware that outside those doors, a famous rapper had just been shot in the valet? It almost does not feel real, but it was entirely, completely, disturbingly real. Now, the viral footage did not just stop at the immediate aftermath. New videos and photos continued to emerge on X, Instagram, and TikTok throughout the night, each one adding another layer to the story. Bystanders filming, people reacting in real time, and one clip in particular captured something that would send the internet into complete and total overdrive. That right there is the moment this went from a breaking news item to a full-blown viral event. Because people were not just watching anymore, they were sharing, they were tagging, they were demanding answers. And the biggest question of all, the one that everybody online was screaming about, was not just who shot Offset. The bigger question was, why was Offset even at this casino? Why had he been there long enough, and under what circumstances, that somebody had the time, the motive, and the opportunity to confront him the way they did? Because here is the thing about the Hard Rock Casino in Hollywood, Florida. It is not a place you stop by for an hour. It is not a quick detour. If you are there for a reason. And in Offset's case, as we are about to break down in extraordinary detail, that reason had a name. That reason had a price tag attached to it. And that price tag had so many zeros on it, it would make your head spin. Offset, 34 years old at the time of this incident, built his name as one-third of Migos, alongside his cousin Quavo and the late Takeoff, one of hip-hop's most tragic losses in recent years. He had massive hits, solo career momentum, a public relationship with Cardi B that kept him in tabloids for years. But the version of Offset that showed up at the Hard Rock Casino on the night of April 6th, 2026, that version of Offset had a reputation that had been quietly building in the streets for a very long time. A reputation that people close to the scene had been whispering about, and in some cases, shouting about, well before this night ever happened. And we are going to get into all of it, the deaths, the addiction, the people who were apparently already watching him, and the name that social media immediately attached to the trigger. Because this story, it was never just about one night at a casino. This story was about everything that led a man to be lying on the ground outside those doors, and everything that was set in motion long before the first shot was ever fired. The gambling addiction. Nobody could hide before we get into the numbers. And oh, we are absolutely going to get into the numbers. Let us take a moment to understand exactly what kind of situation Offset had built for himself at that casino. Because what emerged in the hours after the shooting was not just a story about gun violence or celebrity chaos. What emerged was the story of a man who had been hemorrhaging money at the very property where he was shot. Not just casually losing, not just a bad night, but losing an amount so staggering that it genuinely stunned even the people who were already aware of his gambling habits. And then, on top of that, voluntarily staying and asking for more. Because here is the number, $890,000. That is what Offset was reportedly down at the Hard Rock Casino when a set of private messages between him and his casino host were leaked and started circulating on social media. $890,000 in losses. And rather than walk out the door, get in a car, go somewhere, and decompress, his response was to ask his host to secure him a credit extension so he could keep gambling. That is the part that should stop every single person watching this cold. Because that is not a man in control of a habit. That is a habit in control of a man. $3,000 in cash. That is what the casino host had been able to get him at that moment. And Offset, the man who was down nearly $900,000, is texting his host, asking where the cash is, not preparing to leave, not calling his accountant, not doing any of the rational things that a person with a handle on the situation would do. He was asking for $3,000 in cash and working the credit line angle simultaneously. According to the leaked messages, Offset was pushing the host on how long the credit extension approval would take, and the host admitted they were not sure, that it had been escalated higher up the chain. And then the host asked Offset if he wanted to know how much he was down for the trip, $890,000. And his response, his immediate, unfiltered, in-the-moment response, was that he needed $500,000 more, not to pay back what he had already lost, not to settle his account and walk away clean. $500,000 more to keep gambling with, to keep chasing. And that word, chasing, is the word that every person who understands problem gambling immediately recognizes. Because chasing losses is not a strategy, it is a symptom. It is the thing your brain tells you to do when the addiction has overridden every rational circuit you have. The math never works. The hole only gets deeper. But in that moment, none of that matters, because the feeling of getting it all back feels more real than the reality of the situation you are actually in. And here is the part that makes it even more haunting. Offset himself had already told the world exactly how he thought about gambling. He had put it on camera. He had said it with confidence and bravado, and absolutely zero awareness of how it would land months later in the context of $890,000 in losses. Pull out an M. Pull out $1 million. Wake up and go right back at it. In the context of a flex short, a clip designed to signal wealth and nonchalance, that sounds untouchable. That sounds like the kind of line that becomes a quote graphic. But pair those words with a casino host text chain showing a man down nearly $900,000 begging for a credit extension, and that whole flex collapses into something that is genuinely difficult to watch. Because the version of Offset in that short, the laughing, unbothered, pull out an M version, and the version of Offset texting his host at what must have been 1, 2, 3 in the morning, chasing a $500,000 credit line, those are not the same person. One of them is a performance, the other one is the truth. Now here is where the story shifts from sad to dangerous, because the gambling was not just costing Offset money, it was costing him something far more valuable in certain circles, his reputation as someone who keeps his word. According to Big Homie CC, who addressed Offset's casino habits directly in a video that circulated before the shooting even happened, Offset had reportedly been borrowing money from people in his circle. His homies, his associates, people who trusted him based on his name and his profile, and then not paying them back. His gambling addiction bad. That is not a casual observation. That is somebody who has seen this up close, who has been in those same casino spaces, saying with complete directness that what Offset has is not a preference or a pastime. It is a problem. And a problem of that magnitude, running at that financial scale, borrowing from that many people and not returning it. That creates a very specific kind of social danger, the kind that does not announce itself, the kind that waits, the kind that shows up in a valet line at the Hard Rock on a Monday night. And the person who eventually became the name attached to what happened that night was allegedly right there in that same casino. The claim, which exploded on social media within an hour of the shooting, was that this confrontation was not random at all, that it was personal, that there was a face-to-face altercation inside the Hard Rock before any shots were fired, and that the moment Offset walked away from that altercation thinking it was over, it was not over. We want to be fully transparent. This is an unconfirmed social media allegation, not a statement from police. But what makes it land so hard in the context of everything we have been laying out is the detail. It is not vague. It describes a sequence. It says it is on camera, and it fits, with uncomfortable precision, into the portrait of a man who had been spending so much time at this casino, losing so much money, and burning so many bridges, that the conditions for exactly this kind of confrontation had been building for a very long time. That is the connective tissue of this whole story. The gambling was not just a financial spiral. It was the thing that kept Offset at the Hard Rock. It was the reason he was there, exposed, distracted, deep in a losing streak, and surrounded by people whose patience for his behavior had run completely dry. The casino was his escape. And on the night of April 6th, 2026, his escape became a trap. The streets were already talking. Here is the thing about information that travels through the streets. It almost never appears out of nowhere. By the time something becomes a news story, by the time the cameras are rolling and the reporters are live outside the crime scene, people close to the situation have usually known something was coming for a long time. They may not have known the exact date, they may not have known the exact location, but the conditions, the tension, the slow-building pressure of unresolved situations and unpaid debts and burned relationships, that had been there, sitting, coiling, waiting for exactly the kind of night that April 6th, 2026 turned out to be. And the person who arguably laid that groundwork most clearly and most publicly was the individual known as Big Homie CC. Because Big Homie CC had spoken extensively about Offset's situation in a video that was already circulating before this shooting took place. And when people went back to watch that video after the news broke, the things he said landed with the weight of prophecy. Serial degenerate gambler. He owes several of the guys money. Several. Not one person. Not a small misunderstanding between friends. Several. And when Big Homie CC used the word guys in that context, he was speaking very clearly about people in Offset's extended network, people from the streets who had extended him some form of trust or credit and had not been made whole. Now, if you owe one person in that world and you run off on them, that is a problem. A manageable problem, maybe. A problem with a face and a conversation attached to it. But if you owe several people and you run off on all of them, that is a very different kind of problem. That is the kind of problem that follows you everywhere you go. That knows your habits. That watches your movements. That knows which casino you post up in and for how long. And Big Homie CC was not vague about the specifics of how this played out at the casinos. He was speaking from what he described as direct personal observation, because according to his own account, he frequents casinos himself and had repeatedly seen Offset there in person. And what he observed was consistent and alarming. A man gambling beyond what his current situation could support, wearing irreplaceable luxury items he refused to convert into cash, and instead leaning on the generosity of those around him. He will borrow money from his homies and just run off on them. Sit with that for a moment. You have an asset on your wrist, an irreplaceable high-value watch that could cover a meaningful chunk of what you owe the people around you, and you refuse to sell it. But you will take money from those very people, and then you will not pay them back. That specific pattern, keeping the luxury item while offloading the financial burden onto your circle, is the kind of thing that does not just make people angry. It makes people feel like they have been played, like they were used, like the friendship or loyalty they extended meant less to you than the watch on your wrist. And in the world that Offset moves in, that is an extraordinarily dangerous message to send. Repeatedly, to multiple people. Big Homie CC made it explicit. There were multiple people in Offset's orbit who were actively on his case over this behavior, and his own response to that knowledge was to maintain deliberate distance whenever their paths crossed. I stay far away. That is not just a personal preference. That is someone recognizing a volatile situation and choosing not to be anywhere near it when it goes off. And if someone on the outside, someone who says he is not even deeply connected to this specific conflict, can sense that level of danger, imagine how clear it must have been to the people who were directly involved, the people who felt they were owed, the people who had been told they would get their money back and were still waiting, the people who had watched Offset walk into the Hard Rock Casino night after night and decided that enough was enough. Now let us talk about the allegation that broke the internet hardest. Because shortly after news of the shooting spread, an individual identified as Seti Nash made a claim on social media, attributing the shooting to rapper Lil Che. This claim was immediately amplified by Academics TV and went viral with extraordinary speed. The allegation was specific in its detail, that Offset and Lil Che had gotten into a physical altercation inside the Hard Rock, that Offset had the upper hand in that fight, and that after the confrontation seemed to be ending, Lil Che allegedly escalated by producing a firearm and shooting Offset. We have to be fully transparent here. This is an allegation made on social media and has not been confirmed by police or any official source. The Seminole Police Department confirmed that 2 individuals were detained and that the investigation was active, but no suspects were publicly named, so we are not rendering any verdict here. What we can say is that this allegation traveled further and faster than almost anything else connected to this story. And the reason it spread with that kind of velocity is because it was specific. It named a name. It described a sequence of events with detail that felt firsthand. And crucially, it claimed that everything was captured on surveillance, all on camera, at the Seminole Hard Rock Casino, one of the most comprehensively surveilled entertainment properties in South Florida, which means that if this account has any accuracy at all, law enforcement almost certainly has footage of every significant moment. The initial confrontation, the escalation, the shooting, all of it. And with 2 people already detained at the scene, it was clear that investigators were already working with a focused picture of what happened and who was involved. But step back from the specific allegation and look at the full architecture of this story. Look at everything we have laid out across these 3 parts. You have a man down $890,000 at the exact casino where the shooting occurred, chasing those losses, begging for more credit, showing every sign of a gambling habit that had spiraled far beyond what anyone could call recreational. You have multiple people from his own circle reportedly fed up and actively looking for what they were owed. You have a source who, before any of this happened, was already publicly warning that Offset was making himself dangerously vulnerable by spending days and weeks at casinos, essentially lacking in front of anyone with a grievance. And then you have a night at that specific casino that ends with gunfire and a famous rapper on the ground. The connections are not subtle. The context is not hidden. Nothing about this was random. This was the culmination of a situation that had been building, loudly, visibly, with multiple witnesses, for a very significant amount of time. And what makes it genuinely tragic is not just the violence itself. It is the fact that so many of the warning signs were already fully in the open. The borrowing and the running, the luxury watch over the outstanding debts, the casino host texts, the street chatter from people saying they were staying far away. All of it was there. All of it was documented. All of it was visible to anyone who was paying attention. Offset is reportedly stable. He is being monitored at Memorial Regional Hospital. His spokesperson confirmed his condition following the shooting. 2 people are detained. The investigation is ongoing, and the entire internet, hip-hop, sports media, celebrity gossip, mainstream news, is watching to see what comes next. Because in this story, the shooting was not the origin. It was not even close to the beginning. The shooting was the moment everything that had been building, in the dark, in whispered conversations, in casino text messages, in street-level warnings, finally cracked through into full public view. And now that it is all in the light, every piece of it is visible. The losses, the debts, the patterns, the people, the pride that got in the way of better decisions. All of it. This is the story of a night that shocked the world. But maybe, for the people who had been watching closely, it should not have surprised a single soul.